Oh, one other thing.
What?
Want to remind him, 8:30 a.m. the recount starts out at Festival Hall.
Yeah, if you can come down there and help, and you find me or something, we could assign you a table to look at.
Great.
And make sure when they're going through those opened, used absentee ballots, whether it's just an envelope without the ballot in anymore, make sure that at least, if you best you can, make sure they're checking those to make sure they're valid.
Well, good morning. Welcome back to Talking Racine. We have Mr. George Meyers on board this morning. Mr. Jim Spodek, and I'm Ken Jorgen, your host. And if you're tuning in today just specifically because I gave you a teaser last week about a big show this week, the thing that we were projecting we might have on has been postponed, and there's a reason for that. It's somebody who is a businessman who wants to open up a business here in Racine. He's invested like a couple $1 million, and he just has these barriers being thrown at him by the city. And there's a possibility that the guy will end up suing the city. Now, he doesn't want to, and he's said back off until we find out what's going on here. But the back off is going to last about a week.
Right.
So it might happen next week. Actually, hopefully it doesn't.
Right.
Hopefully they'll come to an agreement.
Out.
The city will leave the guy alone, let him operate his business, and everything will be hunky-dory. But this is one of the things that we're complaining about, is this city and the city attorney that we have are constantly having problems with people who come in and independently want to open up businesses. Now, if you're hooked in with the administration, oh man, they'll throw millions of bucks at you. I mean, I don't know how much money have they actually thrown at the Wild Root Market.
Oh yeah, that's probably, well, we know about.
And there's nothing going on. I mean, that's exemplary of businesses that come in that are favored by the administration, and they get money. Other people get the
right. And if you look at all these businesses that have been interrupted, this one I think is probably one of the higher profile key businesses. It'd be nice to see something happen.
Yeah.
Where the other, like Wild Root, big deal. It's the store down the street or something like that.
Right.
This
But anyway, our apologies
one,
that we don't have the big one that we said we were probably going to have. Hopefully
it'll be good news, and we can come out and say, hey, guess what, folks?
Yeah, everything's
the city
great.
got out of the way.
Yeah. Another thing that's interesting that happened just in the last few days is Sheriff Smelling put out a statement basically saying that, hey, we're tired of the shutdown that's going on here, and we're not going to enforce the shutdown law if we see somebody that's violating it. Now, hopefully what he's saying is that they're just not going to be sticklers about it, because there are some things that, people should still be very, very mindful of when you're out in the public.
Well, I hope he does what he says in the headlines, is he's going to make sure he's enforcing the Constitution, not just Dottie Bowersox and Corey Mason's laws.
Yeah.
He's going to respect the rights of the individual, and that's to me is
so
the key
not
statement.
a stay-at-home order. So if you leave the house, you don't have a chance of being arrested.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, people
like us.
We're legal again, guys.
Yeah, we're legal today.
I'm an essential worker. I'll give each of you guys a little treatment before we leave, so that we're all legal, and you can send me a check.
Yeah.
Another issue that we want to talk about here, that's the Sandy Widener case, which is finally scheduled.
Yes. Schedule in the appeals court.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that had anything to do with the election?
Absolutely, it had to do with the election. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, now that the election's over,
Well, Sandy was retired.
The judge that was holding the thing up got reelected.
Correct.
Okay.
But why would you have let's say that case actually was...
you mean if it was exposed beforehand?
Correct.
Oh, all right.
So we know a little bit about what's happening here. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the appeals court does with this case. You remember it's the open records case, that this city was holding up, confidential emails. Well, those confidential emails was bogus, and it was challenged by Widener. And now of course, it went through the court, so we went all through that, and now it's at the appeals court, so now we're going to get an answer. But it played a lot of politics along the way.
Yeah, so now that the election's over, I mean, the information can come out and say, it was
a
bogus.
Mistake, we had, that email, forget about that,
I hope you're right, Jim.
Oh.
That so
follow
sad
the money and
that
follow
type
the
of stuff goes
politics.
on.
That's the.
Speaking of politics, we just had an election, and we're now in the midst of a recount. And George, you're our resident expert on the recount because you've spent more time down there than most people. You've spent a good amount of time down there.
Well, George, you were a petitioner.
Right, I was a petitioner representing hot government.
Right, and you were the secretary of hot government.
Right.
So we get all that straight out right from here.
Yeah.
So hot government is a honest, open, transparent government, and
we were five. In other words, we were 5 votes. How do I want to say it? 5 votes away from defeating the referendum. In other words, the referendum won by 5 votes, $1 billion, and there were 33,000 votes cast. So now we've demanded a recount, and that's a really bad name for it, because if you're just going to recount the ballots, it's going to come out at the end that the referendum passed by 5 votes.
Right.
All right. Recounting on these machines now, the best way I can describe it is like adding 13 and 18 on a computer, calculator, or your phone, and it's going to get 31. You can do it. You can enter that 13 plus 18 and find out what it equals, and it's going to give you 31 7 billion times. I don't care how many times you put it in. It's going to do it every time.
Well, I'm not going to do it 7 billion times.
No,
I just came up with 31 here. So.
All right, but you give it to a person and have it interspersed in a problem someplace, and they have to make a mistake 50% of the time, you know.
50%.
Or at least 10% of that.
I was going to say,
hey, that modern math,
he's working with geniuses. 50% success rate here.
The point is that's the way if you're going to watch the recount, which I've done. I've been through. This will be my 4th one. And you spend a lot of time. Those people spend a lot of time counting those ballots. They will first. The first step is to go through the people that, the wrong word is registered, but they went in and put their name down, signed in order to vote. That's not the registration of the vote, but that's the recording of your vote. And then they can compare all the people that signed for it and compare it with the ballots, and that takes a long time. Mm-hmm. They go through every single ballot and make sure someone recorded from it. And at the end, you have to have one signature for each ballot, and here's the key point: that ballot must agree with the machine.
So you're recommending that it shouldn't be a recount; it should maybe be termed a review, or
a review of the ballots. The thing is that if you it's the old garbage in, garbage out concept with computers. You know, a computer will always calculate. Marvelous job of calculating.
Right.
Computers can't make a decision, but only people can do that. But the computer can calculate, and it will do a marvelous job of that. If you want to change what the result is on the computer, you have to change the garbage that went in and get it better. And that is what the real job is of people like me, to go in, not to recount, not to watch a recount. Because I've seen what happens when they're trying to get these ballots and trying to get the numbers right. If they come off 1 or 2 numbers, they go back and let's recount those ballots, because we have to get our agreement with the machine.
So you're kind of like a garbage sniffer down there.
That's what we're doing, and there's the places, and so that you know, once we get away from that and get into looking where the trouble comes from, that's what we want to do. Jim, you were going to ask a question there.
Okay, so in this particular, this this last Saturday, you were down there for roughly 8 a.m. to 4 o'clock.
We weren't allowed in until 10:30. The first couple hours was training. By the way, you go into a festival hall, and it's huge. The whole thing is covered with tables, nicely spaced. It looks like a huge military plan of how we're going to invade Europe or something like that. I swear to God.
Oh, jeez, I hope this one doesn't go international.
Yeah, I tell you, it's something. You walk into that thing, and the whole thing, there's tables around, there's white lines and X's, and you know, for the 6 foot, and you can't go in there without wearing a mask, you know.
Right.
And I got my name tag when I walked in the door. They asked who I was. I told her who I was, and they sent me right up to the table. Go get your name tag and go in, because I am one of the few people that can really ask questions. Mm-hmm. The 6 petitioners get to ask questions and get to consult with the rejection or acceptance of ballots.
Okay. Now here, I just want to just touch on that a little bit. Some of these I do know. Some of the other petitioners that you had gotten written up in the paper, George Meyers from Hot Government.
Yeah.
But there is also other ones. It's the Taxpayer
Association have a representative.
The Libertarian Party.
Libertarian Party has a representative.
There's an individual.
There's an individual. He is independent. He's a lawyer. I think he's got heavy connections with Unified because as I'm watching him on the disputes, he's at every single one with me. It's generally him and me, and he's always going with Unified. Take that one. Yeah,
right,
that's good. And I'm sticking to the rules. Here's what absentee ballot has to be. It has to have these things on it. If it doesn't have it on it, I'm rejecting it.
Okay, and then who else?
The other two I haven't found yet. Who they are?
Okay.
They look like normal individuals. I know two of them. The Taxpayers Association.
What does a normal individual look like? Anyway?
Not like you.
How do you identify?
I'm saying the lawyer doesn't.
Right.
My two friends I know.
Well, I agree with that.
The lawyer, you can spot him right away. He's the only guy on the floor that's got a suit
like an
tie
FBI
on.
agent. There he is.
Got his $300 shoes on,
Right.
and this type of
Don't
stuff.
look at him. He's undercover.
But the other two were going to look like normal people,
Right.
I guess. And I haven't gone around and looked at name tags closely and ask everybody that's,
Right.
Are you one? Are you one? Because there's
No, now you've been
six.
involved in one. How many recounts did you say?
This will be my fourth one. We had.
Now, typically, how many people will petition for a recount? From your experience,
Well, this is the first one that is a non-political office recount. So typically, it's one person, and it can only be, or one or two people. It can only be a candidate. But this one, because there's no candidate, all the requirement is that you voted in the election.
Got it. Okay, so you got these tables set up, and each one does something different? Or
Each one is a different ward. They're all doing the same thing.
All the same thing?
But each ward. So
Okay.
there's 10 wards at a time going. See, when we did the candidate one, like we did with Henry Perez, there's two tables there, and they're doing them at the same time. But that's all because that's all the wards there are.
wards,
Okay. And then,
So you can go from table to table?
Yeah.
And how do you find that there's a discrepancy in a ballot?
Somebody over at the table has raised their hand and say, we have a problem here.
Okay.
And then the swarm goes over there.
Well, then how does... All right, let's just say...
they smell the garbage all over there.
Okay, so what are some of the problems?
A piece of it comes up and it flies. Okay.
What are some of the problems with a ballot?
There are some requirement. By the way, almost all the discrepancies center around write-in ballots.
Okay.
There are.
Well, that makes sense because typically you're gonna catch it at the voting place because
the most complicated thing.
But I mean, the ballot might not feed if there's something wrong with it, and then it'll be noted, and they'll talk to the voter.
But that's not. No, it's not the ballot sheet. Specifically, it's the process that went through to make that ballot allegedly legal.
Okay.
Now let me explain that. In other words, what it means is what I mean by most of the things is because there's a process to go through when you vote. When you go to the polls and vote, you sign in and vote. You're handed a ballot. You go over to the booth, fill out the ballot, go over to the machine, feed in the machine. Nobody touches that ballot except you. It's very private, and it goes in the machine. It's counted. You get your number, and you go home. When you do it by absentee now, we have to get into witnesses, we have to get into statements, we have to have addresses, signatures, dates, we have to check postmarks, we have to make sure they were mailed in time, received in time, and they were properly notarized.
Now, has there been a postmark issue? Because we talked about that last week, that there are some post offices that do not put postmarks on the mail anymore.
That's right, and if they don't have it,
You don't get it.
they don't get it.
Has there been a situation that's come up where there hasn't been a postmark on a ballot?
Yeah, absolutely. The most interesting one was, and I like this one because this one got somebody's vote that your vote was initially held back because it came up in the ballots that have been rejected, write-in ballots, and I think they were both from Caledonia. I think I'm right in that. Let me just see if I have I think they're in Caledonia. Where it had been postmarked April 6th. Then Caledonia got it and put a bolder, bigger mark on it April 8th when they received it. So the person that looked at that ballot originally in Caledonia rejected it because it was after April 7th. Well, in the recount, when they reviewed that, it came up, and then by the way, because of the coronavirus thing, there's no conferences anymore. You can't all gather around and look at it.
Right.
They take it up to a special table up front where they put it on a screen up there, so everybody can see it. So we're all spread around. So we have this conference of 8 or 10 people looking at this ballot up on the screen. And if you looked at it real closely, you saw the postmark April 6th, and then you saw the Caledonia mark April 8th, and it hadn't been opened. Nothing like that happened. So we all agreed to accept it. I agreed to accept it. Their lawyer accepted it. And there's a little panel there of representing the Unified School District, I think it's 2 or 3 teachers, that they have become the committee of sorts that reviews this and makes the final decision. So we all agreed to accept it.
Now, there is a procedure where the envelope that it came in and the ballot itself, they are identifiable. You know that this ballot came in this envelope, right? Yeah. That's good. That's one of the things I was kind of worried about.
Yeah, now once it's accepted, though, if it's been accepted and opened and used, that's lost.
The envelope is lost?
The connection between the envelope it came in and who voted it, and who voted, and the vote. And we'll get to that in a little bit. We want to be sure and bring that, because that did come up. And it's very interesting how that gets handled. But the thing is with these votes where we all agreed it was a legal ballot. Everything else on the ballot, by the way, was correct. The thing you're looking for is you're looking for the signature of the voter, you're looking for the signature of the witness, and the address of the witness. Those are the 3 main things. The major error in those is the witness doesn't put his address down. But at any rate, and that makes it an illegal ballot, as far as I'm concerned. But at any rate, in this one, they were all there.
As far as you're concerned, and you're concerned because that's the way the law is written.
Because that's the way the law says.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
You
shouldn't be in charge of the election.
No, I'm not. I didn't write the law. The law was written that way, and that's specifically written in the law that the witness must put down his address, or his or her address. Well, at any rate, so we go over to the, ultimately we went over and we opened it and cast the ballot. Now, this is the one place where the secrecy breaks down. Now, I don't get to look at it. I don't get to touch it, at least not in this environment because of the coronavirus thing. Any normal counting, people like me, the only people who get to touch it, let's put it away, are the people that are actually counting them.
Right.
But otherwise, I'd be able to see it. But I couldn't even see it this time because you're kept so far away with it. And when they put it up on the screen, I wasn't paying any attention. I really didn't care. But at any rate, so they opened it up. And one of them was yes for the referendum, the other was no for the referendum. So then those ballots got cast, and that was where we changed what the machine said.
Got it. So the machine...
That's the machine, that's when all the people counting ballots can now add on to those ballots on, and they can change the number on the machine.
Okay.
But that's the only way it gets changed. It doesn't change by just counting the ballots. You know, back in the old days when this recount started, the counting was done by hand.
Right.
And you can imagine how many mistakes there would have been in a 33,000 vote election. So you would go through and you'd recount them, and you would compare that with the original count, and a lot of times there's a difference because human beings did both of them.
Right.
But when they got these machines, and as picky as these machines are, they don't make the mistakes. They're like the calculator that adds 13 and 18 every time and gets 31. You know.
Well, so, I'd like to clarify for people that are watching, in case some don't know, is when we're talking about machines in elections, the machines that we have are ballot counting machines.
Yeah.
Now, when it's electronic voting, like it is in some other states,
like that at all. Yeah.
No, that is very, very susceptible to mismanagement.
Absolutely. If you can get into those machines and change the formula or something like that,
they've been proven to be hackable.
Right.
You know,
right.
I mean, so
no, ours is. I think the whole country should adopt Wisconsin's. And I'd like to get rid of a lot of after this. I'd like to clamp down on some of this absentee ballot stuff. I mean, we got to modify it somehow because it brings up all the problems. But anyway, where you take that vote, you've cast your ballot now, and you put it into that machine, and it's virtually impossible to change, and that machine doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
And if you make a mistake on the ballot, well, we'll get to that in the future. But you were wondering about what was your question on the ballot?
Well, now you've got the absentee ballot, and you've got a the person that cast the ballot, you have the witness to it, you have the address to the witness. How many of those are there? Some that have been tossed out because they came in and said it doesn't have the address or it doesn't have a signature. I mean, do they have ballots that have just automatically go through? Do we go through those ballots too and find out that they were?
Now, if a ballot comes in, it's got the proper signature on top of that type of stuff. That gets opened up and cast.
Okay, but they have to have the witness and the.
It has to have the two signatures and the witness.
Okay,
address.
it doesn't have an address. What happens to it?
Then it should get set aside and not used.
Okay.
Now, in the city election, that's what was followed, but in this referendum, the wards that we've looked at so far, which was North Bay, Caledonia, Elmwood Park, and what was the other, Wind Point, they were accepting them. If it didn't have some of them, if it didn't have that address by the
who was accepting them?
The people at the city, at the municipality, they were accepting them.
Okay.
One of them accepted it. I don't think there was a signature, either signature on it or the address.
Okay. Now, is anybody challenging that?
Yeah, well, that's where I come in.
Okay. How many of those have been challenged?
I haven't kept real close track, but I think it's around 20.
Okay. So you got 20 votes out here that are questionable. As far as
they're all marked and they go with my name on it as having been questioned.
Okay. So you've got a pile of 20 ballots over here that are somewhat questionable. They don't have all the proper information on that particular mail-in. What is law? What does the law say about it?
The law says that it must have a signature on it.
Okay.
And that is
an address of the.
It must have a signature and the address. Right.
Okay. So you've got 20. Currently, already after the first day, you've got 20 ballots that are
challenged.
That are being challenged.
Now, here's an interesting part too, because you talk about separating the ballot because you can't follow it up. There were 2 ballots in Caledonia and 3 in Caledonia and 3 in Wind Point that me and the board there and that lawyer guy all agreed were illegal. They'd already been separated from their envelope. There was no way to trace those ballots back. So we have 6 ballots to redo somehow. Now here's the process as I understand it.
Okay, 6 ballots have been considered
illegal.
Illegally cast. And there's a 5-vote difference.
Okay.
Now, what they're going to do is
suspense.
3 are from Caledonia, 3 are Wind Point. So they're going to take those wards. Caledonia has more than one place they're voting, so it's going to be just that batch, which is 2 or 3 wards. Wind Point, I think, just has 1 ward, one thing. So they're going to put them in a stack, and they're going to, like a magician in the cards, pull out 3 at random.
Oh boy! And
eliminate those 3 votes.
Oh, really? 3 votes.
3.
Okay.
Now, if they pull out a ballot that has nobody voted on the referendum, no change. That's one of the ballots.
Okay.
Okay. We don't know the 3 ballots that got invalidated. It might not have. None of them out of the 6. None of them may have voted on the referendum. We don't know.
Yeah.
They may have all voted for, or all against, or assertion. Yeah. So you don't know. So the one that you pull out. It's just potluck. You could pull out a no vote. You could pull out a yes vote. You could pull out a null vote. In other words, there was nobody voting.
So the potential at the end of all of this for a tie exists.
Oh, it really, really exists now.
Yeah.
Okay, but we still now have. How many more days are we going to have this counting? We haven't hit the city of Racine yet, correct?
Well, what we did Saturday was just start. We covered like 4 tables. They wanted to get a couple of them completely done, and then that's all we got done. And there's something like, I don't know, it's twice what we're seeing, somewhere around the neighborhood 60, 70. And those will start, in a couple hours from the time of release of this show.
Okay.
It'll be at 8:30 Monday morning, and will be going until 4 o'clock is the target in the afternoon. That's the target, but they know they're never going to meet that target, but they'd like to be at least out of there by 6.
Right. Okay, can anybody come down there? Can a citizen?
Anybody can come down there. Come on down. If it gets too crowded, you won't be allowed in.
Okay.
But so far, there's plenty of space. It's a great, big, huge thing. There's not that many observers. There's only, like I say, 6 people, 6 candidates, whatever you want to call us, and most of us don't have representation.
You know, does it look like the recount will be completed by the end of the day today, or do you expect that there's?
Oh no, they expect to go. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, they expect to go into Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Wednesday at best, Friday at worst, probably Thursday.
Okay,
that's their expectation.
Yeah.
Now, if we judge it by how long it took to do the Racine recount, it's going to be past Friday, but hopefully, or even what they did today, four in a half a day. So we got 70 to do. Divide that's 30.
Yeah, it's going to go for quite a while.
More like 8 days, you know.
Okay, I just want to go back before I know we're running out of time here, but you got a pile of 20 envelopes here. Mm-hmm. No ballots, because the ballots have already been cast. So what happened here is that ballot was sent to one of the municipalities. They opened it up, they cast the ballot, they kept the envelope, and then now
that was opened by just someone at wherever it would be. You know, in Racine, it would have been probably Tara. I'm not sure, you know.
Right, somebody at City Hall.
Somebody
or
actually opens it up that's
right.
dealing with the elections in the city clerk's or village clerk's office, opens it up, saw the outside, but said, it doesn't matter, we don't need an address, or didn't know.
Okay, so now those have been cast. Now you're saying we have 20 possible ballots that are fraudulent, or at least not.
They're not legally completed.
Yeah.
Right. So now,
if the judge on appeal, because this is going to go up to the court, if he rules with me, then they're going to have to go back to all those districts, every place they occurred, and they're going to have to do. This is my understanding. It's the only way, because we saw it where everybody agreed it was illegal.
Right.
They did it immediately. No, they didn't do it immediately. They're going to do it Monday. They're going to do it later today. All right, but they're going to go over to the stack of ballots, put them all together in a stack, and pull it out someplace. Now that they're calling it random. It's not random because the top one never gets picked and the bottom one never gets picked. Exactly. So it's really not random. Right. But we'll pretend it's random. And if it's in alphabetical order, if they did it like they did in Racine, and they're going to pull it out, that's a gross miscarriage.
Yeah.
There's a way to do it randomly that I know about, and I'm going to present it. I'm going to bring it with me. But if that's what they're going to do, they're going to pull them out. Now, and they've already decided that on the 6 ballots that we talked about. On the possible 20 additional ones, they'd be doing it for all those also.
Okay, that's after a decision.
That's after a decision by the court.
But the 6 that are out, so I just want to get this finally before we close the show, is that as of Monday morning, the count stands at 2 votes were in rejecting the referendum. So now there's a 3-vote difference.
There was 3 votes, 3 additional. Or 3 more no votes added than there were yes votes, because some votes got switched and stuff like that. Okay. I want to cover one other.
Okay, so we're down to 2 votes.
We're down to 2 votes.
So that referendum is a difference of 2 votes now.
Right now it's down to 2, but you know, when we get done with this drawing from the middle, who knows where it goes? This is one of the problems with all this absentee balloting. And let me tell you, there's one other one that came up that was interesting, and that is where. The ballot itself, the original ballot, was not used. Now, I got a view of the ballot, you know, enough to see that it wasn't tattered like some of the ones in Racine, or when they opened up the absentee ballot, they accidentally tore the ballot inside in half. You know how a letter opener will do that.
Yeah, right.
All right. So at any rate, then you have to make a new ballot because the machine can't accept it in pieces. Well, this one, my guess is that the voter voted wrong and wanted to redo it. So they went over and got a new ballot, we'll call it a replacement ballot. So at any rate, there were 3 such ballots. And that was in one of the, I think it was in the Caledonia district. I'm not sure. That's beside the point. But one of them went from a yes vote to a no vote, and the other went from a no vote to a yes vote. So they canceled each other out. The third one, my understanding was a null vote. No, it didn't vote at all, and then there was a no vote in there.
Okay.
So that's how how it closed that gap from 5 down to 4, and then another one it closed it down to 3 and 2.
Okay.
So it's sitting at 2 right now, which doesn't mean an awful lot. We just got 4 wards we went through. You got 70
There's
more
a lot
to
of
do.
votes to go through.
Yeah, and it's going to be a busy time. And where only thing that my main concern right now in this is I've seen now what I did not see in any of the other prior counts, where they looked at the absentee ballots that were opened and challenged those.
Okay. Okay.
All the ones I've ever seen were the ones that were not used, and they brought them up for review and said, should we use these also? All right? So, and when after Henry's one, I thought, no, wait a second, how about all those were open? How do we know those were validly cast?
Exactly.
See?
Yeah.
Now, in this one, at these 10 tables, you see, like I say, these little groups, all of a sudden, somebody raises their hand, and they're coming up with 4, 5, 6 ballots in these wards that we're reviewing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I showed you 20 of them, see? So there's a lot of... How many were in how many of those automatic races?
Right,
see?
so these mail-in ballots, these absentee ballots, have really created more of a problem than a solution.
It's terrible. It's terrible. And, and it's because the reason they had to put all these strictures in there, you know, signatures and addresses, is because there was so much fraud going on with trying to just vote by mail.
Well, Chicago's notorious for a graveyard.
Yeah.
I mean, voting from the grave,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but
I intend to.
We hang around long enough, we're all going to get there.
Yeah, there was a gal that was just an observer from Chicago, and she had left Illinois. She went from Chicago. She was from Illinois. She said they have wrecked Illinois by doing just what she was watching they were doing, because she was just an observer, and one of these votes came up and she said, no, you can't accept that, and they shut her up. You're just an observer, you can't say anything.
Well, there you go, folks.
Yes.
Democracy in action, and the narrow margin, especially on the 12th district and the referendum. That just goes to show you that your vote is important.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if another 10 people would have voted in the election, in those particular elections, and all voted as the same way,
well, here's the thing,
result could be completely different.
No, that's true, but then for the people that say it doesn't matter, here's the argument on that. You know, your vote didn't matter on this one. Look, they've already got 20 or so many. It's changing around like crazy.
Yeah.
You know, what difference would have made if I voted?
Well,
so if we got it down to where you could really have one person, one vote, and it was a legitimate vote, then it would have made a difference. 5 people would have made a difference. But you see, already we're down to 2. You know, and it may go back the other way. It may flip around. Who knows? Then you have to say, what is one vote? What does one vote mean?
This is like going to the racetrack and the horses are walking.
Okay, I just want to make one more point before you go. Hot government, you're the secretary, we're all involved with hot government, but I mean, there's quite a few people involved, and I know that hot government is very much involved in looking at elections, looking at different parts of
honest, open, and transparent. Right. We're learning more about it. I hope you're understanding that. That's why we're talking about it.
So visit the website. Just go to the website, get an idea what hot government is, and you know, I'm a big proponent of it. I think it's a great idea.
Support the work, too.
Support it, support it. There's a donation on there. You can go ahead and donate.
Yeah. We've all donated some money.
Yep.
You should too. Anyway, that's about it for today. Please come back next week. We'll give you an update on some of this stuff. Some of this stuff is going to transpire this week. In fact, just about.
We have a lot coming up.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 items that we got here are going to be important next week. So please come back and visit us, and we'll be waiting for you. And thanks for being here today. Oh, one other thing. Want to remind them, 8:30 a.m. the recount starts out at Festival Hall.
Yeah, if you can come down there and help, and you find me or something, we could assign you a table to look at.
Great.
And make sure when they're going through those opened, used absentee ballots, whether it's just an envelope without the ballot in anymore, make sure that at least, if you best you can, make sure they're checking those to make sure they're valid. Because in Racine, not a single one was brought up, and Racine's coming up.
Yeah.
And when our 36 wards come up, there's a good chance that all of a sudden no hands raised on the absentee ballot envelopes.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you next week.